The rain poured relentlessly over the quiet countryside as Daniel Carter, a hard-working single father, finished cleaning his small wooden farmhouse after putting his 7-year-old daughter Lily to bed. Since losing his wife years earlier, Daniel had worked long hours as a carpenter while raising Lily alone. Their home was modest, but it was always filled with warmth, kindness, and laughter. As thunder echoed through the night, Daniel heard a weak knock at the front door. When he opened it, he found an elderly woman standing in the freezing rain. Her gray hair clung to her face, her worn coat was soaked, and she shivered uncontrollably while clutching an old shoulder bag. She quietly apologized. "I'm sorry to disturb you. I only need somewhere warm for tonight." Without asking who she was or where she came from, Daniel stepped aside and smiled gently. "Please, come inside, ma'am." Lily quietly walked into the hallway carrying her favorite blue blanket. Looking at the elderly woman with innocent concern, she wrapped the blanket around her shoulders and said, "Grandma, you'll feel warmer now." Tears immediately filled the old woman's eyes. Daniel prepared hot soup, dry clothes, and a cup of tea while the storm raged outside. The elderly woman introduced herself only as Margaret, explaining that she had become separated from her driver after her car broke down on a remote road. Daniel never asked for more details. To him, she wasn't a stranger. She was simply someone who needed help. The next morning, the rain had stopped. Just as Margaret prepared to leave, the quiet country road outside suddenly filled with black luxury SUVs, security vehicles, and several police escorts. Lily rushed to the window in surprise. Men in black suits stepped out and hurried toward the farmhouse. A beautiful, elegant businesswoman in her early 30s emerged from the lead vehicle with tears already forming in her eyes. The moment she saw Margaret safely standing in the doorway, she ran forward and embraced her tightly. "Mother, we've been searching for you all night." Daniel stood frozen. Only then did he learn that the elderly woman he had welcomed into his home wasn't an ordinary traveler. She was the mother of Victoria Bennett, one of the country's youngest billionaire CEOs, and Victoria would never forget the single father who had given her mother shelter when no one else had. Victoria Bennett couldn't stop thanking Daniel. "Every hotel turned my mother away because she had no identification with her," she explained. "She wandered for hours in the storm before finding your home." Daniel smiled humbly. "Anyone would have done the same." Margaret gently shook her head. "No, many people saw me last night. You're the first person who opened the door." Before leaving, Victoria handed Daniel a business card and said, "If you ever need anything, please call me." Daniel accepted it politely but tucked it into a drawer without looking at it. He had never helped Margaret expecting a reward. A week later, Daniel's small carpentry workshop suffered a devastating fire caused by an electrical fault. Most of his tools were destroyed, leaving him unable to work. Bills quickly piled up, and Daniel quietly searched for temporary jobs while trying to hide his worries from Lily. One afternoon, Lily innocently found Victoria's business card and asked, "Daddy, isn't this the lady whose mommy stayed with us?" Daniel smiled. "Yes." "Maybe she would like to know we're okay," Lily replied. Daniel hesitated but finally agreed to make a simple phone call, not to ask for money, but only to thank Victoria for checking on Margaret after that stormy night. The very next morning, a convoy of black SUVs stopped outside Daniel's burned workshop. Victoria stepped out with architects, engineers, and construction managers. Looking at the damaged building, she quietly turned to Daniel and said, "You gave my mother shelter without asking who she was. Now it's my turn to help." Within hours, workers began clearing the damaged workshop. But Daniel had no idea that Victoria wasn't planning to rebuild the old shop. She was about to offer him an opportunity that would change his daughter's future forever. Over the following weeks, Daniel watched in disbelief as his old workshop was transformed into a modern woodworking studio equipped with the latest tools and machinery. Victoria Bennett refused to call it charity. "This is an investment in someone whose character I've already seen," she said. She offered Daniel a long-term contract to design handcrafted furniture for Bennett Hotels and Bennett Luxury estates across the country. It was the biggest opportunity of his life. At first, Daniel hesitated. "I don't want special treatment because I helped your mother," he said honestly. Victoria smiled. You're not getting special treatment. I had your work evaluated by independent designers. They all said the same thing: you have extraordinary talent. My mother simply helped me discover it. As the business grew, Daniel hired local workers who had struggled to find employment, turning his small workshop into a thriving company that supported dozens of families. Lily loved visiting after school, proudly helping her father organize wooden samples, while Margaret often stopped by with homemade cookies, treating Lily like the granddaughter she had never had. One afternoon, Victoria invited Daniel and Lily to the grand opening of Bennett Foundation's newest community center. During the ceremony, she stood before hundreds of guests and shared the story of the rainy night her mother had disappeared. "The man standing here today never asked who my mother was," Victoria said. "He didn't see a wealthy family. He saw a cold, frightened elderly woman who needed help. That's the kind of person every successful company should work with." The audience rose to their feet in applause. Daniel looked at Lily, who squeezed his hand tightly and whispered, "Daddy, Mommy would be so proud of you." Daniel smiled through tears, realizing that the greatest reward for one act of kindness had never been wealth. It was showing his daughter that compassion always finds its way back. 1 year later, Daniel Carter's small woodworking shop had grown into one of the country's most respected custom furniture companies. His employees often said the workshop felt more like a family than a business. Every Friday, Daniel personally delivered handcrafted furniture to schools, shelters, and community centers, believing success meant lifting others as you climbed. Lily had grown into a kind, confident little girl, always reminding visitors, "Daddy says everyone deserves a warm place to belong." To celebrate the first anniversary of their partnership, Victoria Bennett organized a charity gala at the Bennett Foundation. Business leaders, journalists, and community volunteers gathered to honor people whose kindness had changed lives. When Daniel's name was announced, the audience stood and applauded before he even reached the stage. Victoria smiled warmly as she addressed the crowd. "A year ago, this man welcomed my mother into his home during a storm. He didn't know she was connected to a billionaire family. He simply saw someone who needed help." That single act of compassion reminded our family that true wealth isn't measured by money, it's measured by the kindness we show when no one is watching. Margaret slowly walked onto the stage and embraced Daniel and Lily. With tears in her eyes, she said softly, "That rainy night, I thought I had lost everything. Instead, I found another family." The audience wiped away tears as Daniel looked down at Lily, who smiled proudly. "We didn't change her life," Daniel whispered. Lily squeezed his hand and replied, "Maybe we changed each other's." As the evening ended, the Bennett Foundation announced a new program called the Open Door Initiative, providing emergency shelter and support for elderly people with nowhere to go during storms and harsh weather. Daniel's story inspired thousands of volunteers across the country to open their hearts to strangers in need. Walking home beneath a clear night sky, Daniel realized that the greatest gift he had ever given was simply opening his front door, and that one small act of kindness had opened countless doors for others.